The following is an in-depth story analysis. If you haven't seen the first seasons of either show, you may want to before watching this video. Escape room-inspired horror has been on a bit of a tear lately, partially due to their symbiotic relationship with the myriad How to Beat channels flooding YouTube, but mainly because they capture the fun, vicarious thrills of classic slasher movies. If you want a new horror movie that isn't a remake, some inspired by a true story ghost affair, or a feel-bad metaphoric tale about loss, odds are you're going to wind up watching someone try to survive a deadly game. The watershed series for this type of fare was obviously the Saw films, but in addition to their many other problems, the Saw movies often featured characters who were so utterly gormless they may as well apply for a job at Miami Metro. Do or Die, escape a death trap horror is a lot more engaging when you're watching characters do something and thinking to yourself, okay, I'd probably do that too. When you relate to, or at the very least understand, the character's actions, it puts you in the character's shoes when they have hard-won victories or shocking defeats, as opposed to morons who miss obvious hints and get bashed in like blood piñatas while you scream at your TV. Stop cheering and grab the fucking break. Oh, yeah, whoops, you're done for. So if you want the best of blood-pumping death games, Netflix has you covered with their fantastic new Korean import Squid Game. Sure, it's not the greatest show in the world, but while you're watching it, it kind of feels like it is. Squid Game was a pleasant surprise because I had a less than stellar experience with a very similar series from Japan titled Alice in Borderland, also on Netflix and released only a year prior. I absolutely devoured the first few episodes of Alice in Borderland, recommending it to my friends and family like I was trying to single-handedly get it renewed. Then I got a few episodes deeper, completely lost interest, and had to awkwardly tell everyone, yeah, I watched more of it and actually don't bother. Now that I've finished everything on my plate with both shows, I feel like doing a deep dive on why one series thrilled me consistently while another hooked me, then lost me. It's time to talk to Squids in the Borderlands. Would you like to play a game? Apologies in advance if and when I absolutely butcher pronunciations in this video, or if I miss more minute South Korean and Japanese cultural details. I consume a huge amount of North Korean media, but really all I've seen from South Korea prior to this is Snowpiercer. I haven't even made it to Parasite yet, that's how out of touch I am. And as far as Japan, I've only ever touched two animes. Attack on Titan, which I enjoy but is supposedly the normiest of all animes, and Kill la Kill. My friend invited me over one night to watch Kill la Kill, and after a few episodes I thought I should maybe call the police on him. Guess I just have a small-town narrow mindset. I tried to broaden my horizons with a German movie, Wetlands. The opening titles are a microscopic view of a pube on a toilet. The plot is about a girl attempting to use her hospital stay after her anus gets ripped to reunite her estranged parents. I feel cultured, watching a foreign film. Then I got to the pizza scene. Never again. How about we try a Spanish film next? What's this one called? The Last Circus? Never again. Sorry for the overlong preamble. Let's get to the premise. Premises. Both are series about a group of characters attempting to survive a series of life or death games. Rather than just being torture porn, there's a major emphasis on alliances, betrayals, social engineering, understanding the rules, twisting the rules, breaking the rules, and last-minute saves that let you live to see another day. In Squid Game, a collection of down-on-their-luck debtors are roped into a series of 6 games to compete for an ever-increasing cash prize. Every player death increases the payout, incentivizing backstabbing. The games are based on classic Playgrounds children's stuff we all remember from recess. Playing marbles, eating candy, red light, green light, tug of war, the 700-foot bridge made of glass. Alice in Borderlands, alternatively, offers no payout. The name of the game is Survival. After an opening introducing us to our 3 best friend leads that is so saccharine it makes the prologue of Kingdom Hearts look like Platoon, the characters are dropped into an empty city and forced to participate in a collection of deadly games to prolong their lives. The games are categorized like a deck of cards. Club games are team games, diamonds are logic puzzles, spades are tests of strength, and hearts are dastardly games of social manipulation. The value on the card correlates to the difficulty of the challenge. If you win, you earn that many more days to live. Refuse to participate, and a laser from the sky will smoke you. Both structures are very solid, and their settings allow the show to flood viewers with striking visuals. Alice is all lonely, abandoned streets, ominously luring players to further dangerous games as the sun goes down and the city goes dark. Squid Games features these bizarre, garish settings. The game rooms all feel like they're running around an old-school Disneyland ride, which is made doubly eerie when characters sneak around where they're not supposed to. The initial games also set the tone for the shows that will follow. Squid Game starts with a shocking game of red light, green light where any moving player is gunned down in a panicky massacre while shadowy figures watch on. Humanity has been stripped from these people. They're horses to be bet on, literally worth more alive than dead. And while the game starts out horrific, the musical flourish of Fly Me to the Moon and stylized slow-mo invites you to enjoy the game from both sides. The audience can sympathize with the struggles of the participants, but can also sadistically enjoy the carnage to come, just like the spectators. Alice's game winds up a bit more cerebral, and is a thrill ride from start to finish. Walking into a hotel with a series of perfectly square rooms with 2 doors, the team is tasked with choosing. Walk through one door and live, walk through the other and die. The way the characters attempt to reason out the situation perfectly establishes what the future games will be about. Is this just luck-based? Is the point of the game to vote on who to potentially sacrifice? Then they deduce the layout of the building based on the dimensions they saw walking in, turning a 50-50 deadly coin flip into a puzzle that can be solved and defeated. This establishes that Alice is full of terrifying, deadly games, yes, but with enough skill or strategy they can be won. Alice in Borderland's premiere is an absolute barn burner, or hotel burner, and while the following games never quite live up to it, they still have that masterful sense of tension leading up to them and absolute edge-of-your-seat dread as the rules are explained.
人をもてあそぶ裏切りのゲーム。7は結構難しいんじゃないか。
We only see 6 games played out in full for the first season, but it definitely activates the creative juices of the viewer. What the hell are the other 46 games? Your mind races about each category. Unfortunately, a mid-season episode features a goofy montage of several other games, starring bad visual effects and uninspired ideas. The show devoted 4 episodes to showing us just how dangerous and devious these games can be, and then in one episode the tension is completely deflated as we watch a bunch of drunken frat boys knock a dozen games out in one night. There is also one major fear hanging over all of Alice in Borderland's runtime. So we're in this weird alternate world with no sense of how we got here. There's time dilation, sky lasers, all kinds of just completely impossible stuff. And while there are bits and pieces of revelations about the nature of the game, I do get the sneaking suspicion that when all is said and done and the series finale airs, it's gonna wind up being some ridiculous mystery box, it was all a dream or a simulation or they're all in purgatory bullshit that'll make me feel like an absolute asshole for ever getting invested. At least in Squid Game, we know this is all real. They're given the option to tap out after the first game and the group takes it, though many of them ultimately return to the game after they're forced to face the reality of their shit lives. I mean, hell, 93%? My old employer had a lower retention rate than that. And with a bunch of prize money on the table, the characters also have something more than survival that they're working towards. Although I do wish they didn't all have the exact same motive. It's stated that they're all in massive debt and that's how they were targeted for recruitment, sure, but I wish there was a tad more variety to their motivations beyond that to survive until the payout. Everyone is in deep to loan sharks. Everyone is in trouble with the law. Everyone has a relative that needs money to survive. It wouldn't hurt to have some variety in the aspirations of each character. Makes me think of that game Twisted Metal. A bunch of weirdos enter a life or death demolition derby and the winner can wish for whatever their heart desires. The characters are already eclectic and fun enough, but their varied wishes that all inevitably backfire make it even more fun to root for them because you want to see how they might pan out.
Your wish for pizza is granted.
No! Speaking of characters, both series trade on similar stock archetypes. You got the innocent dead man walking, the bully with a brute squad, the hot chick of dubious trustworthiness, the cool best friend, who in Squid Game also pulls double duty as the ruthless ringer who knows how to dominate each game. Alice kinda keeps them all one note, while Squid Game adds a bit more depth. Like, sure, the big brutish jerk is the villain, but instead of a loyal army that follows him blindly, he's constantly forced to play defense each game as his underlings attempt to steal the throne, and we see he's much more of a coward than he lets on.
네가 먼저 가든지 여기서 같이 죽든지 둘 중에 선택해.
On the other hand, Alice was put in a predicament of their own making because they decided to take a major gamble and kill off all but one of their main cast 3 episodes in what I'll label the Heartbreak Game. Both series feature a game midway through where the characters are forced to turn on their own team members. Squid Game's marble sequence is pretty emotionally hard-hitting, but still lets the main cast carry on. The characters who bite the dust are audience favorites, sure, but it was pretty transparent from episode 1 that they would never go the distance. Just tell them about the rabbits, George. By contrast, Alice in Borderland gives us a game of hide-and-seek. Much to Sora's dismay, their friends are not their power, and only one person gets to leave the game alive. It's a brutal and tragic episode, and while it raises the stakes of the series as the audience realizes anyone can die, the show never reaches such a high water mark again. Killing off all but one of your main cast members halfway through is a huge gamble. I know Alfred Hitchcock sort of did that in Psycho, but it wasn't just a gimmick. Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned. Spoilers for Psycho, a movie that came out 60 fucking years ago. Hitchcock was a master of tension and story structure, and if you're going to roll the dice just like he did, you better goddamn know what you're doing. Alice in Borderland rolled the dice and came up Snake Eyes. The show was forced to pivot to a new plotline altogether, the beach. A vast cult of bikini-clad game participants who believe completing all 52 games will earn one of them a chance at returning to the real world. If it weren't bad enough that the situation is so jarringly different from the high-stakes game our lead was playing a few episodes ago, the harebrained concept of the beach itself is Plot Hole City. The idea that hundreds of people just decided, yeah, no matter how ridiculous the concept, this seems like an organization we should form and then blindly devote our lives to. Makes me wonder if they all used to be students at Greendale Community College.
What a delicious combination.
What are we getting from this extra level of commitment?
And then you get into the nitty-gritty of the game rules. There are hundreds of people involved in the beach, and with how committed to the gimmick and hierarchy these people are, I assume the organization has been in existence for a while, but we're still not done with all 52 games, despite it being an obligation that basically everybody has to do at least one a week. And if you've been at it for so long, how do you not know most of the games by heart? We're never given any indication that games change. In fact, I did a quick Google search of the manga this is based on. They're for sure always the same games for each card. So many are free wins if you know the solution. Send people the distance with the foreknowledge to wait on the bus. Yeah, just wait right there and don't do anything. That's the trick. Do the door puzzle again. You all know the answer now. And while you're at it, camp someone outside the botanical garden to do some recruiting. Don't let anyone take on 7 of Hearts again. By the way, only one of the 4 of you will be able to walk out alive. We've already finished this game. If you don't mind getting your socks wet, we'll do the light bulb puzzle instead. We already figured it out. Naturally, a society as ill-conceived as the beach cascades into infighting. Infighting is also a component of Squid Game's plotline too, but it's more of an abrupt orgy of violence. It adds to the theme of the entire work, the devaluation of human life. It isn't the whole point of the entire show, like the last decade of The Walking Dead. And that's the biggest letdown of Alice in Borderland. The show has been wheel-spinning with its characters and commentary, but by God are the death games top-notch. Then we get to the grand finale, the 10 of Hearts, Witch Hunt, and it's just a game that makes the beach infight more. If that weren't lame enough, the solution was beyond obvious to me. The rules of Witch Hunt are, dead body is found in the lobby of the beach. No one can enter, no one can leave. Find the person who killed them and burn their corpse. The beach immediately descends into a full-on 2-parter Belko experiment. Am I the only one who immediately clocked the solution? Nobody else in this entire building of hundreds of people who are supposedly only alive due to their capacity to solve puzzles? She killed herself. Just burn her body. Boom, you're done.
She murdered herself in her sleep, sir.
You mean suicide?
Oh, no. It was murder, all right. Mrs. Twain hated herself.
Of course, that was the answer. It was a suicide. The beach is done for good, but now with all the numbered cards done, the face cards announce they are in play. Alice basically ends on letting you know that you just watched the first part of a 2-parter, which I will reiterate, is heavily implied to all be some sort of dream. Squid Game, on the other hand, reaches a more definitive end. Granted, the final game of Squid Game isn't exactly a cerebral masterpiece. Basically just boils down to stab each other with steak knives. It's already the least compelling of the 6 games, but if you buy into the friendship between the characters, that at least lends the sequence a certain depth. But I don't buy into their friendship. Overwrought as it was, boy oh boy did Alice in Borderland sell me on the fact that these characters were best friends. Meanwhile, in the second game of Squid Game, this prick figures out the rules and deliberately attempts to kill his best friend. Okay, so at this point, to me, he's just the bad guy. And it's not like any of his actions later in the series even make an attempt to redeem him. Other than that, the structure of the 5 preceding games is pretty spot on. The occasional wonky special effect aside, they're executed perfectly. Red light, green light is there to serve as the rude wake-up call to establish the gravity of the situation. The Honeycomb game introduces us to alliances forming as some characters aid one another while others feed their allies misinformation. Tug of War is the first game to demand players personally kill the other team, and Marbles demands players kill their own team. By the Stepping Stones showdown, it's pretty apparent that for most of the cast, the only winning move is not to play. That's my only big gripe about the death games on the show. The writers establish in the first episode that if a majority votes to not play the game, everybody gets to go home, empty-handed but alive. Obviously, the series isn't going to end 5 episodes in, but the only time the veto rule comes up is immediately after games during emotional breakdowns. When an important component of the show is people using everything at their disposal to win, it seems reasonable a lot of these desperate participants would still know when to fold them and hit the big red eject button. I don't buy that that every person who got an umbrella in the Honeycomb game wouldn't immediately at least attempt to vote to end the game. The Marbles game left the cast in emotional ruins since everyone picked their friends, but the vote isn't even brought up once when they learn they will have to kill their partner. If I was the guy who picked my own wife as a partner, I'd be petitioning the whole group to end the madness. But apparently he just BTFO'd her at Marbles, then made the tearful plea for human decency after.
당신이 부인을 죽인 걸 용서라도 받아? 그렇게 괴로우면 왜 당신이 살아왔어? 당신이 부인 대신 죽었어야지.
And don't get me started on the bridge game. The odds of the first half of the contestants surviving are so astronomical, you'd figure that would be an easy game to convince people to call it quits on. One guy straight up points out the statistics of his likely demise, then goes for it anyways. At the end of the day, though, this is all just a nitpick. These characters are thoroughly established as degenerate gamblers who don't know when to quit. It's not a deal breaker or anything. Just an element I wish the show incorporated to better explore the mindsets of the cast. At the end of the day, Ji-hoon defeats his friend-turned-foe, then has his Star Trek arena moment and shouts, "No, I won't kill him, just end the game." Instead, his rival asks him to take care of his family with the money and ends his own life. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. But the horrors Ji-hoon witnessed over the course of the game, on top of his mother dying before he had the chance to give her treatment, caused him to emotionally check out. A year later, he's still living like a bum, with a boatload of prize money and a bank account he never touches. Receiving a mysterious invitation, he learns his elderly gambao Il-nam, who he killed in the Marbles game, is in fact still alive. At one point, the game's creator, Il-nam, decided for his last year alive, he'd have more fun participating than spectating. If you just read a plot summary of the show, this probably comes across as some big, earth-shattering reveal, but while I didn't predict it, it also doesn't change all that much. It's a thing where you sort of go, oh, huh. I bet there's cool hints about that on a rewatch. The final exchange between Il-nam and Ji-hoon is alright. No deathbed confession is ever going to top the 4th season finale of The Americans, but it's a serviceable wrap-up. Ji-hoon spends a bit too much of it being angrily confused.
냄새나는 인간 쓰레기를 도와주겠나?
Bella, will you tell me what the hell is going on? What is all this about?
Il-nam is also kind of talking out his ass. Ji-hoon ultimately wins his final bet against the old man by retaining his faith in humanity. Il-nam spins this bullshit premise that the wealthy and the poor are the same because they both endlessly crave excitement, which might have made some sort of twisted sense if it weren't also clear in hindsight that Il-nam cheated during the games. Looking back, it's apparent he said a safe word to cancel the riots after Game 2, and obviously he was going to be let off the hook by the firing squad during Marbles, win or lose. At the same time, there's no way he could have predicted he would survive the tug-of-war. Like, his whole team barely made it. So it's weird. Were the life or death stakes actually what got him his kicks? Or did he just want to LARP as a contestant? I wish he was a more ideologically consistent bad guy. Think of the Joker in The Dark Knight. He's got this massive plan to sow discord on the streets of Gotham, sure, but he also seems perfectly happy to die at any part along the way to prove his point. He would have been happy if Batman dropped him to his death off the tower, or ran him over with the Batpod. He would have been happy if Harvey's coin came up tails in the hospital. I'm almost convinced he was willing to die just in the opening bank heist. Instead, like I said, Il-nam is just completely talking out his ass. His brain tumor is real. If the games were a last-ditch attempt to have a good time, but not for a long time, why did the writers undermine that by having him cheat the whole time? A twist that I actually was able to predict, but that I found resonated a little more, comes at the end of our B story. A detective stows away as the contestants are snatched up, going undercover as a member of the staff and quietly collecting evidence on the operation while searching for his missing brother. While I was initially thinking this will surely go nowhere and just end in his death, I actually found myself surprisingly engaged with this James Bondy little caper. Not so much Roger Moore James Bond, where he's globe-trotting to such an extreme that he actually leaves the globe at one point. Think more of a Lazenby Bond, trapped behind enemy lines in an evil lair with all this weird shit going on, with nothing but your wits, a pistol, and your powers of seduction to rely on.
인원 점검 중입니다. 그대로 문 앞에 대기해 주세요.
The end of the undercover plot comes to exactly the conclusion you would expect given the tone of the show. He's found out, and the Darth Vader henchman figure reveals himself to be his missing brother. Not a big surprise. I mean, who the fuck else was it gonna be? Ji-hoon's mom? A detective dies before he can show the world the truth, taking the secret of the game to his grave. If this were a one-off mini-series, and if the plotline weren't thrilling from start to finish, I'd say it was a bit of a dud. However, the journey itself was fun, even if the destination was a return to the status quo. Between the cliffside fall that leaves the detective's death ambiguous, and the callback to Fly Me to the Moon as not Vader returns to his chambers, supremely dissatisfied with this turn of events, I believe the second season of Squid Game can make effective hay with where things left off. Meanwhile, the main plot with Ji-hoon also leaves us on a cliffhanger with one big question. What the hell is that haircut?
I can answer your stupid fucking question. After his final bet with the owl fucker, Ji-hoon is inspired to believe that people, including himself, can do good, can be good, and can change outcome. He's been through an insane transformation as a person from the Squid Game, but he is still Ji-hoon. The red hair is interesting, and there's a few things that I want to say about it. The first being, there's no way he went from a level 1 darkest black to a bright fire truck red in what seems to be roughly an hour. That's just not possible. He also didn't leave with any products for colored hair, like color depositing shampoos or conditioners. It would have been a fun detail for somebody who loves costume and hair, like me, to see, but I'm nitpicking. It's okay for the purpose of what they're trying to convey, which is that Ji-hoon is some new version of himself and wants to live beyond the prison of the trauma from the Squid Game. Even after he has won, he can't let them win by convincing him that the world is not one worth living in or that he needs expensive hair care products to maintain his new look. So first, the hair is Ji-hoon's physical change to symbolize an inner change. I like the choice because it's a common human behavior and wasn't a lot of the show about how people behave. Slipmaker's problem with the hair is that he has no sense of fashion and doesn't get why a man would dye his hair this color. First of all, the actor is a 10 out of 10 dime piece and he looks fantastic with red hair. Slipmaker's opinion about that can be fully discarded. I'd like to point out that even though an American man with a trash opinion may not dye his hair a crazy color for fashion, Korean men will, and they will look amazing while they're doing it. It's a fashionable color. Plus, it suits Ji-hoon's newly found wealth. He walks around looking like a star and has money like a star would. He just isn't being chased by any stans because he isn't an idol. He's Ji-hoon. My last take on the hair is the possible symbolism of the semi-permanence of the dye. The color will wash out, like this kind of color, it never stays. You have to maintain it. So is that foreshadowing that Ji-hoon will let his old greed and outlook on the world taint or fade into his perspective again? I mean, we already get the hint that he is still not over it because of the final scene of him abandoning his flight to confront the Squid Game orchestrators. And wasn't he on the way to see his daughter? Like, wasn't that his whole motivation? He gave up his whole motivation to go fight these people again, it seems. So I don't think that this is a permanent change, just like hair dye is not permanent. It would be nice to see if at like his lowest moments in season 2, that's when you see the hair dye as the most faded color, where like this change has completely washed out of him. He's back in this old version of himself and he's fully in the Squid Game. And that would be my take.
But the dude's like 40.
And?
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words,
I wish he was close enough for me to reach. If only he could breathe on me.
That's getting cut.